13 of the Standing Committee of Citizenship and Immigration to order. I call this meeting to order and just want to, before we go into further meeting about the public health precautions we all need to take, public health authorities have recommended the following practices for all those attending the meeting in person to remain healthy and safe. Please maintain physical distance of at least 2 meters from others. Wear a non-medical mask when moving in the meeting room, and preferably wear a mask at all times, including when you are seated. Maintain proper hand hygiene by using the provided hand sanitizers at the room entrance and wash your hands well with soap regularly. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank members in advance for all their cooperation. So, welcome all to meeting number 13 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration, and the first meeting for the year 2021. We hope and pray that this year will be a better year for all of us. The first agenda for this would be the adoption of the subcommittee report on agenda and procedures. The report was circulated to all the members in December, and it has also been circulated to Mr. Guinness. Can I have the motion for the committee to adopt the report in order to ratify the motions adopted by the subcommittee? So can I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I bring the motion forward to adopt the report.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Tenju.
I'd like to just speak to that before we vote.
Yes, Ms. Tenju.
Okay, I think that for the committee to be aware, when we met about a month ago in subcommittee to decide this report, there have been significant developments in Hong Kong since that time. Just in case the committee is not aware, we recently learned from John Ivison in the National Post that the Hong Kong government is forcing dual Hong Kong citizens to choose one nationality or the other, which brings considerable issues for those looking to renounce their Canadian citizenship if they so choose, limiting consular access to them. And if they don't, that could jeopardize their livelihoods and their right to live in Hong Kong. The second thing we've seen is the arrest of 53 pro-democracy activists. Many of them were candidates in opposition parties and organizers therein. That both of this has come to light in January since we discussed this report. So in light of the dire situation there that is increasing, I do believe an amendment is in order to this report. So I would like to move the following amendment. Under Section 1 of the report, I would recommend that we amend it to include the following. That regarding the study of special immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong, the committee invite government officials to appear for 1 hour, the minister to appear for 1 hour, and invite witnesses to appear for 6 hours. That is my amendment to the report.
I see a hand raised, Mr. Garnet-Genyes.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the opportunity to participate in the important work of this committee. I just wanted to speak in support of my colleague, Ms. Dancho's amendment. There's a real crisis in terms of the well-being of Canadians in Hong Kong, threats that exist. And we have heard in other places in the House that the government is contemplating the possibility of having to put in place emergency measures to bring back hundreds of thousands of Canadians in a very short space of time. I think 3 hours of study on that large issue, which affects the well-being of hundreds of thousands of Canadians at a really kind of critical turning point in global human rights, whether the government of China will be able to undermine Hong Kong's freedoms. There are so many critical issues that go into that, and I hope that members of all parties would be supportive of the principle of giving this proper study. I think what my colleague has proposed, having 6 hours instead of a mere 3 hours, so that you can hear from witnesses, answer the important questions that are at play, is very much worthwhile. So I wanted to express my strong support for the amendment, and I hope that other parties will agree that we need to properly study the situation in Hong Kong as it relates to the rights of Canadians and the response in terms of immigration measures here in Canada. Thanks.
Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And I too would like to support this amendment. And given the rapidly changing situation in Hong Kong and the urgency of the situation, I do think that it would be worthwhile for us to extend the scope of, well, not necessarily scope, but extend time with respect to the study. The other issue that I think is related to this, of course, is the issue around the VFS Global contracts, as members might have picked up this news as well, that VFS is a company contracted out by the Government of Canada to process immigration applications in visa application centers abroad. And it has been brought to light that the parent company of VFS Global is backed by a subsidiary of the state-owned Chinese Investment Corporation. And the implications surrounding this involvement of these investments raises, I think, serious concerns around the security of the information handled by VFS. As members know, oftentimes immigration processes are detailed and extensive. And so it deals with a lot of sensitive information. It has been brought to light and reported that at least one major security breach has already occurred with respect to personal data. And it was also noted in the media report that IRCC has no record of the Government of Canada ever being notified. The Canadian government at this juncture is, I believe, reviewing the extension of these contracts. So I think it would be worthwhile for us to look into this as well as we proceed with this study, and particularly for the implication for the people of Hong Kong.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Madame Normandin.
Thank you very much. I take note of the motion tabled by my colleague, Ms. Denshaw. I would like to ask that the motion be sent to everyone beforehand, especially for translation purposes. I'm not against it. I'm not against the principle, especially given the recent developments, but I would like to discuss the impact that this would have on other issues we will be looking at. And we would need to look at the different reports that will be discussed. Next Monday, we'll be talking about Hong Kong again. Maybe that time would be better suited to discuss that motion, especially given the fact that we've lost some time with the votes. And perhaps we could talk about the agenda. So I wonder if my colleague would accept that we look at her motion next Monday.
Thank you, Madame Normandin. We have next Madame Martinez-Ferrada.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to support what my colleague Ms. Normandin said regarding Ms. Denshaw's motion. I believe that we all agree with the principle behind the motion. However, we do have witnesses here with us today. They are waiting for us to listen to them. So I agree we should set some time aside to look at the motion at the next meeting on Monday. And this would give us some more time. But I believe that we agree in principle. I am sure that we will be able to agree. But we are here to listen to what our witnesses have to say, and now we're taking up time.
There are some translation issues, so Mr. Clerk, can you please check?
Yes, checking now.
I was not able to hear what Madam Martinez-Ferrada said towards the end.
Est-ce que vous voulez que je répète, Madame?
Would you like me to repeat, Madam Chair?
Oui, alors juste.
So I'm not sure what you heard or not. What I was saying is that I believe that we agree in principle, all members agree, but I believe it would have been good to have to receive this motion beforehand, and it would be better for us to focus today on our witnesses. So I believe that we should debate that motion on Monday. And in the meantime, we might even be able to get to an agreement, but I would like to listen to the witnesses.
Farada, we have Ms. Dencho.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to my colleagues for their comments. I just have to rebut that a little bit. I don't see the amendment as being overly complicated. We're just adding 1 hour for the ministers and bumping it up from 3 to 6 hours for witnesses. So it's not overly complicated. I think given we're in committee business now, we can vote on this right now. And as members have themselves said that they believe that this is important given the recent very alarming developments. So really, I think we should vote on this amendment now while we're in committee business and just get this done so we can get in more witnesses and just move forward. It's not an overly complicated amendment. And I just want to say that, you know, if we do support the people of Hong Kong and we do recognize the importance of the Department of Immigration regarding the 300,000 Canadians that are in jeopardy in Hong Kong and their family members, if we do stand with Hong Kong, then we should absolutely, this should really, in my opinion, be a no-brainer, particularly for the minister to come as well and to get more expert witnesses. So I say I think we should just move to vote on this. So I would move to vote on the amendment.
Just 1 second. Let me just check with the clerk. We have a speakers list. So a few people have raised their hands. So we will have to go through them. So next we have Madam Martinez Farada, and then we have Mr. Sari.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to ask you to adjourn the debate on this motion until Monday.
Madam Chair, I did move to vote on it prior to her moving that motion.
There was a speakers list, so
There's no such thing as move to vote.
until the Ms. Dencho, until we have a speakers list, we cannot go into the vote. As long as we have a list of the people who have raised their hands and want to add to the debate, we cannot move to the vote.
Can you move to adjourn then? Is that's
Yeah,
okay?
it's a non-debatable
Okay,
motion.
well then,
So
please add me to the speakers list again. Thank you.
So the Ms. Martinez Farada has moved the motion to adjourn the debate. This is not a debatable motion. So we will have to vote on this. Mr. Clerk, can you please call for the vote on Madam Martinez Farada's motion to adjourn the debate?
The question is on the motion to adjourn the debate. Mr. Dhaliwal.
In favor.
Ms. Dillon.
In favor.
Madame Martinez Farada.
In favor.
Mr. Regan.
In favor.
Monsieur Serret.
En faveur.
Mr. Allison.
Against.
Ms. Dancho.
Very against.
Oh, there's only one thing. Either against or very.
Mr.
Yeah,
Howland.
echoes are in the vote either.
Please, one person at a time. We are voting.
Mr. Howland.
So please let the clerk get the vote done.
Against.
Mr. Genuis.
Against.
Madame Normandin.
For.
Ms. Kwan.
Against.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The result is yeas 6, nays 5.
So the debate on this motion is adjourned until Monday. So
Point of order, Madam Chair. Just the nature of a motion to adjourn, according to the rules, is that you can't adjourn until Monday. You can adjourn, from what I understand, you adjourn until a member brings it back, which could be sooner than that. I'm not saying it would be, but that's maybe the clerk can clarify. But my understanding is that a member can, once a debate has been adjourned, it can be reopened as long as something has happened in the meantime.
thank you for that. We will now have to move to the adoption of the subcommittee on agenda report number 2 of the subcommittee on agenda and procedure, the one which was distributed. I hope everyone has the copy.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just another point of order. I don't think you can proceed to a vote on the main motion when we've adjourned debate on the amendment, because the amendment is an amendment to the report.
Let me ask the clerk to clarify on that. Mr. Clerk, if you can please clarify on this.
Mr. Dennis is right.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I understood that the committee was debating the sub-amendment, and Madame Martinez-Ferrara moved to adjourn the debate. If you'll just allow me to get the exact language, I'll come back to you in just one moment, if that would be acceptable.
Okay, so I'll just suspend the meeting for a few minutes until we have the clerk back with the line on that. So the meeting is suspended for a few minutes. Clerk to please clarify the procedure for that. Yes, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the committee, I'm just researching exactly precisely whether adjourning the debate on Ms. Dancho's amendment means that the committee resumes debate on the main motion, or if the committee must proceed to a different item of business. I want to make sure that I provide thoroughly researched advice. If the committee proceeds to witness testimony on the Hong Kong study, which was adopted by the committee on October 20th, then before the end of the meeting, I will provide specific language to the chair, and the committee should have time to dispose of this issue if it wishes.
Mr. Clerk, I just have a procedural question, if I may. I have a
Ms.
procedural
Dancho,
question.
yeah, just 1 second. We will maintain a list if there is something you want to talk on this.
I'm just thinking that was an out of order the way that you ruled. My understanding is if you put a condition on an adjournment vote,
Order.
it is
Order.
open to be debated.
Dancho,
It is open
just
to be debated.
please
Please confirm that.
raise your hand and we will come to you. Please raise your question through the chair and not to anyone else. So please raise your hand and I will keep a list and we will provide you the opportunity to speak. So let me first ask Mr. Clerk to clarify and then we can go. So Clerk, if you can please finish.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My understanding was the motion was to adjourn the debate. I didn't hear any condition placed on it. As a result, it's a superseding motion and not a substantive one.
It was to Monday. Pardon me, it was to Monday. That was the
Ms.
condition.
Dancho, Ms. Dancho, I will provide you the opportunity to speak. I just want the clerk first to please clarify the situation. So please wait for your turn.
As I recall, the motion was to adjourn the debate, and following the vote, the chair pronounced that the debate was adjourned until Monday. I don't believe that the condition to adjourn until Monday was in the motion itself, if I recall correctly.
Just 1 second. Madam Martinez-Farada, when you said that you brought the motion of adjournment of the debate, did you mention that it is until Monday we adjourn the debate?
I mentioned to adjourn the debate, and I mentioned Monday if the member wanted to bring this back on Monday, she could at another meeting. But I mentioned a motion of adjournment of debate.
Thank you. So sorry for that confusion. The debate was adjourned on that. Yes, we can now go to Ms. Dancho. Ms. Dancho, you were raising your hand.
I actually believe Mr. Dhaliwal was ahead of me, so I will go after him.
Mr. Dhaliwal. You are on mute, Mr. Dhaliwal.
Too many things. Madam Chair, we should maintain the decorum here. I think things were going really, really well. I think the way things going right now, consultants are trying to waste the time of the witnesses. All we are trying to move this is to Monday. I think this is a very reasonable ask. And if they really wanted to go at it, they had time before they came to this meeting to have negotiations with other parties, and we could have been into the witnesses, which they are here to put their valuable input. I think we should finish this topic soon, and it's very true that we should go into the witnesses right now.
Thank you, Mr. Dhaliwal. Ms. Dancho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since the member wanted to pull some partisan barbs there, I will say that if the Liberal members really did support Hong Kong and perhaps weren't so worried about an election forthcoming, they could easily approve this very simple amendment that they all agreed that they support in principle and did not provide a compelling reason of why we should wait until Monday to debate it. So the only reason I can assume that the Liberal members want to wait until Monday is if they could figure out a way to not bring the minister to committee to face Ms. Kwan and the questions she raised as well, and the number of other issues that have developed. So I do not understand why we are waiting until Monday. It's a simple amendment.
Madam Martinez-Farada.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je pense que c'est important.
Thank you very much. I think it's important to clear up the words of my colleague. There's no intention of hiding the minister. I think we're being accused of intentions that are not ours. And since 5:39, 30 minutes, the witnesses have been waiting now for 30 minutes to be able to speak for something that we all had passed in December and for a study that is extremely important. So what I would like to propose, I'd like to ask the clerk, can we put this to Monday, next Monday, to be able to deal with the study that we all agreed to in December, and so that we can hear the witnesses that are already here. I think currently in this study, there's no question of partisanship and partisan barbs. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Martinez-Parada. We have Madame Normandin.
Très rapidement, j'étais
Very quickly, I wasn't aware of the motion, which is why I simply asked whether we could move it to another time so that we agree. I don't see how I could be accused of partisanship on this question. I just wasn't aware of the motion. I think it is reasonable to debate it a little later on rather than waste our time and that of the witnesses.
Thank you. We have Ms. Kwan next on the list. Ms. Kwan, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I wasn't aware of the motion either. It's the first I heard of it when Ms. Dancho moved it. But in light of the situation that's going on in Hong Kong, I thought that was a good amendment, and I certainly would support it. And of course, other issues, as mentioned, the VFS issue has also surfaced since December, actually. It was brought to my attention since December. So I thought it would be worthwhile for us to look at these issues in this study. With that being said, if I'm understanding correctly from the clerk, that while he's investigating the question about with the adjournment of the debate on the amendment related to the subcommittee report, while he's sorting
Ms.
out
Kwan,
the answer
I
for
have
that.
the clarification. He has got the
Oh, do
clarification.
we?
So I
Okay.
have that. I just wanted, there were some raised hands, so I just wanted to provide the opportunity to the members to speak. But I have the clarification. So once we are done with the list, we will proceed.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, if we can't proceed to hear the witnesses, I think it's worthwhile to go ahead and do that. And given that they're already here, we've already lost so much time. So that's all that.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Ms. Dancho, you wanted to speak? You are on mute.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do agree with Jenny in that regard to go straight to the witnesses, and we can bookend the officials if that works. And I just wanted to make the final point that amendments to subcommittee reports on the fly are very common. This is not an uncommon procedure amongst committees. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dancho. Ms. Martinez-Parada.
to move to witnesses, but
Okay.
it's fine. I'll lower
So,
my hand.
okay, I have the clarification from the clerk. Adjourning debate on the amendment means that the whole motion is adjourned. So the same committee must proceed to another item of business. So I would propose and ask for everyone's unanimous consent from everyone. Because of the fact that the study of immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong, this motion was adopted last year by the committee. So based on that, without adopting the subcommittee report, we can proceed to hearing from the witnesses. So as the witnesses are here, I think it would be in the interest of everyone that we proceed to hearing from the witnesses. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you. Sorry, just on a very quick point of order. Will the witnesses get a full hour? So will committee get a full hour with our questions? I just want to clarify because of our time is all mixed up.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. We started the committee meeting at 5:10, and we will end the meeting at 7:10.
Okay.
The meeting will end at 7:10.
Point
Okay,
of rapide,
sorry.
Madame la
No.
Présidente, il n'y a pas de traduction.
So in that case,
Wait just 1 second. Point of order. Madame Normandin, you had a point of order?
La traduction fonctionne pas.
There is no translation. Mr. Clerk, if you can look into it.
But while we wait, oh, sorry, it's translation.
Mr. Clerk, you are on mute.
Madam Chair, you can proceed.
So the interpretation is back. Yes, Ms. Kwan, you were Ms. Kwan, you were saying something.
Sorry. So yes, so that would mean, are we going to the panel then on officials for 1 hour and then with the rest of the witnesses for 1 hour? Or are we just going to go to the second panel for 1 hour?
My suggestion to the committee would be that we hear from the first panel and start and give second panel full 1 hour. So we reduce the time from the officials. This is my suggestion. That we, whenever we can start, we proceed with the hearing from the officials and end this panel at 6:10 and then proceed to the second panel from 6:10 to 7:10. We can only have the committee meeting until 7:10, full 2 hours meeting. Ms. Tancho, you had a raised hand? Okay. Thank you. We will now proceed to the study of immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong. Pursuant to the Standing Order 1082, the committee is meeting on a study of immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong. Today's meeting is taking place in the hybrid virtual format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom applications. Yeah. The proceedings will be made available. You may speak in the language of your choice. And you will also notice that the platform's raise hand feature is now in a more easily accessed location on the main toolbar, should you wish to speak or alert the chair. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed through the chair. When you are not speaking, your microphone should be on the mute. With regard to the speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do my best to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. With this, I would like to welcome our witnesses for the first panel. We have the officials from the Department of Citizenship and Immigration appearing before us today. For the first panel, we have Natasha Kim, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Program Policy, and also we are joined by Nicole Gill, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Operations. Welcome. Thanks for appearing before the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration today. Sorry for the delay, because you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You may please proceed. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, membres du comité, de nous avoir invités, nous joindre à vous.
Thank you very much, and members of the committee, for inviting us here today with you. We're here today to inform you of measures taken you from the RCC to help Hong Kongers come to Canada.
Join the international community in expressing its concerns over China's imposition of new national security legislation on Hong Kong. On November 12, 2020, Minister Mendocino, in response to the situation, announced new immigration measures. These included measures to encourage Hong Kong youth to choose Canada as a place to study, work, and settle, given the skills and education that many of them would bring to support our economy. J'aimerais préciser que le Canada dispose déjà d'un large éventail de voies d'accès que les résidents de Hong Kong.
Canada has already very many pathways that Hong Kongers can use to come to Canada permanently or temporarily, whether it is to immigrate, to work or study, or for reunification.
New initiative specific to Hong Kong youth, which will provide open work permits of up to 3 years with eligibility centered on post-secondary education obtained in Canada or abroad. IRCC is working hard to ensure that this measure will be available in early 2021 to applicants who are both in Canada and abroad from Hong Kong. In addition, the department is creating 2 new pathways to permanent residence, available later this year for those who come under the first initiative or who are already in Canada and have been working or studying. The first pathway will target former Hong Kong residents who have gained a minimum of 1 year of authorized work experience in Canada and who meet other criteria such as minimum language and education levels. La deuxième voie d'accès visera les personnes.
The second one were for people who have got a diploma from a DLI, and these people could ask directly for permanent residence and will not require works experience.
Canada is also introducing measures such as priority processing of documents for Canadian citizens and Canadian permanent residents in Hong Kong, and allocating resources to speed up processing of applications, including family sponsorship. Nous comprenons toutefois l'incidence.
We do, however, understand the impact that the current border restrictions could have on when some groups are able to travel.
Already in Canada on a temporary basis, we are waiving application processing fees to those who apply to renew their status in order to extend their stay here. I would also like to note that Hong Kong residents who are already in Canada continue to have access to our asylum system, including to make their case to the Immigration and Refugee Board. Given the change in circumstances in Hong Kong, we have also eliminated the 12-month PRA bar, the pre-removal risk assessment bar for Hong Kong nationals. Under normal circumstances, individuals who received a negative decision on their refugee claim would not be eligible to apply for a PRA for at least 12 months. Finally, Madam Chair, I should note that individuals who flee Hong Kong and fear persecution may be referred to Canada for resettlement by the United Nations Refugee Agency or may be privately sponsored. As per the 1951 Refugee Convention and Canadian legislation, foreign nationals need to be outside their home country to be eligible for our resettlement program. As a result, we cannot accept asylum claims at the mission in the country of alleged persecution. This is consistent with the international legal framework that takes into account state sovereignty.
However, to complement resettlement efforts, Canada, like other countries, relies on diplomatic and international aid efforts to support those in need around the globe. Moreover, it is important to note that those facing persecution can also avail themselves of regular immigration pathways.
Interpreters are having a problem catching up. Thank you.
Apologies, Madam Chair, and apologies to the
I will go to the last point. Moreover, it is important to note that those facing persecution can also avail themselves of regular immigration pathways if they are able to do so.
Earlier in my remarks. So, Madam Chair, the measures announced by the government in November expands opportunities for those who wish to leave Hong Kong and complements the measures announced by our allies. And in doing so, they demonstrate that Canada stands with the people of Hong Kong. We appreciate this opportunity to outline this important work. Merci, c'est avec plaisir que nous répondrons maintenant à vos questions.
Thank you. We will now answer your questions.
To the round of questioning based on the time. We will have one round of questioning for this panel, and it will be 5 minutes each. So we will start with Ms. Dencho. Ms. Dencho, you can please start, and you will have 5 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to Ms. Kim for being here today. Ms. Kim, on I believe it was November 16th when we last spoke at the Canada-China Committee, you had said that, I quote, the permanent resident pathways are expected in 2021. We're aiming to have the open work permit temporary pathway in place by the end of the year, end quote. So do you have any updates as to when the permanent resident pathways will be open, and did they in fact open before the end of the last calendar year?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the question. And indeed, it certainly was our hope to have it open by the end of last year. Due to some technical difficulties, as well as certainly other priorities such as COVID-19 measures, we've been quite busy over the last few months. So we do hope to have that in place very soon, but we're not able to open it by the end of last year. That was my hope.
Okay, understood. Do you have an estimate what very soon means? Is that days, weeks, months?
I would certainly think again weeks rather than months.
Okay, thank you. And Ms. Kim, you also mentioned in the Canada-China Committee that there were approximately 7,000 people who hold valid study or work permits who possibly would be in Canada. Do you have any idea of how many work and study permits exist as of today?
So the information I have on that, Madam Chair, is as of November 30th, 2020. So as of that date, the number of valid study permit holders were 5,250 in Canada, and the number of work permit holders were 3,450 for 7,650 unique individuals. I should qualify that we don't know for sure that these people are actually in Canada, but they had valid work permits and held them at that time.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Kim. I'm just wondering if you, okay, so we don't have any new information since November 30th. That was about 2 months ago. So is there any way to know if there's been any uptake in those work and study permits, or would we not have that information either?
We do have some information comparing to the same period last year. So for example, the number of applications we received as opposed to processed up till November 2020 had increased quite a bit. So in terms of comparing that to the same period in 2019, there was almost a double-fold increase. Work permits had increased a bit, but not to the same extent. So I think we are seeing increased interest in our study program.
Okay, and this specifically for Hong Kong folks applying, or was that just across the board? Yes.
That was specifically for Hong Kong.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask about the grandparents and parents lottery last fall. The minister, and I believe also the officials, might have been yourself or others, but sort of insinuated that the grandparents and parents lottery that was launched last fall.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Dencho. The interpreters would like you to please move your mic closer to your mouth, please. Sorry for that.
Okay, and I apologize if you can hear me breathing as a result. Okay, pardon me, Ms. Kim. Regarding the parents and grandparents lottery, it was announced last fall to have 10,000 folks from around the world come and join their families in Canada. And it was sort of positioned by the minister and others that this was a bit of a solution a little bit to what they're facing in Hong Kong. And my understanding is that all the applicants, the 10,000 applicants that were approved, their families in Canada were notified on January 5th or around that date. So can you tell the committee how many grandparents and parents were approved from Hong Kong?
So I would qualify, Madam Chair, just the 10,000 of invitations to apply that were issued earlier this year were invitations to apply as opposed to approvals of applications. I don't have the information currently in terms of how many of those would have been to those applying or sponsoring someone from Hong Kong. But I would note that in terms of family reunification, there's also the Super Visa program that is available generally, which allows parents or grandparents to come temporarily. And for those in Hong Kong, they would be eligible to come on an ETA as a visitor and be exempt from travel restrictions.
Thank you, Ms. Kim. And my last question, we just have a few seconds left. Regarding the 300,000 Canadians in Hong Kong, are plans being made currently to, if they want to evacuate and their family members, what is the department doing in the event that we have a mass evacuation to Canada from Hong Kong?
So I believe our Consul General has stated in other fora that there has been contingency planning underway at the mission since late 2020 for such an occasion. We are not currently seeing evidence of a mass exodus or an emergency situation, but contingency planning is in place.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kim. The time is up, Ms. Dencho. We will now move on to Mr. Dhaliwal.
Thank you,
Mr.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Dhaliwal, you have 5 minutes. You can please start.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll share my time with the Parliamentary Secretary. My first question is this, carrying on what Madam Dancho asked about the trends of immigration over the past little while. Uh, Madam Kim has mentioned about the different streams or the pathways that already exist. I would like her to elaborate on that, and also would like her to tell us and the committee if they have already taken the advantage of those increased number of immigrants that we are bringing in over the next 3 years.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll begin with the first part of the question, which is what are the pathways available, particularly for those in Hong Kong? And I would just add the layer of who can currently travel under the existing COVID-19 travel restrictions, because that is an important consideration as well. Certainly anyone who is a Canadian citizen or permanent resident who is in Hong Kong can return at any time and are exempt from the travel restrictions. And IRCC in Hong Kong is available to provide travel documents and passports in that case. There also are existing work and study programs. If there's someone who has a work permit and a valid job offer, they can also be exempt from the current travel restrictions. Someone can study at a Canadian institution if that institution has a COVID-19 readiness plan that's been approved by the province or territory. So with those permits that they can enter Canada. We also have our existing economic permanent resident streams as well as our humanitarian streams. So if someone was approved before March 18th under the current travel restrictions, they could also enter. And as many of you know, there's also the family reunification streams available. So this can be sponsorship of a spouse or a parent and grandparent, but people can also come on a temporary status, whether that's on an ETA or on a super visa. So with these new measures, these would be additional measures that would be available to Hong Kong residents in order to come to Canada if they also meet exemptions in the travel restrictions. Of course, anyone coming into Canada at this time would have to abide by public health requirements in terms of quarantine and pre-testing before boarding a plane. Those who are here and can stay, we've offered fee waivers for them to extend their stay or to restore their status. And there are also measures for visitors here to apply for work permit within Canada. I believe the second part of the question was about the number of immigrants we're looking forward to over the next 3 years. We did, the Government of Canada tabled the Immigration Levels Plan last fall. 401,000 new permanent residents is what's being targeted for 2021. And it goes up to 411,000 next year. And so this is certainly something that we are working on here at IRCC. Thank you.
Madame la Présidente.
Yes, please go ahead.
Oui, merci.
Thank you. I would have two questions, and both will be together. Right now, there are economic immigration programs, so we can have immigrants come to Canada, and these objectives were studied in detail by the government. Do Hong Kong residents have access apart from the special measures? And can we say that these special measures were developed and that go beyond economic questions? And second question, can you give us the international context of the measures for Hong Kongers and how the Canadian conditions will apply to that? And how are you going to align these measures? Because there are agreements between Canada and the UK and how they compare to each other.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Il y avait plusieurs questions.
Thank you. There were several questions here, and I will try to answer. First of all the pathways I pointed out are available to Hong Kongers, but the new measures are aimed at the youth of Hong Kong. So these two pathways are only for them. And as the member said, it's a measure that's
We will now move on to Madame Normandian. Madame Normandian, you can please start. You have 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mrs. Kim, for these answers. I'd like to begin by talking about the situation of people who are presently in Hong Kong and whom we would like to see come to Canada. Mrs. Dancho asked a written question about the ETAs, for which we need to meet certain criteria, one of which is making sure that you don't have a criminal record. And the question was raised because under the national security law, some of these people have been charged. And I believe that there's no directives that have been sent to the officers to consider these police records. So is this something that you intend to do in the future to make sure that charges laid in Hong Kong would not prevent people from coming over and having ETAs?
Merci, Madame Chair. Je vais passer cette question à ma collègue Nicole Giles.
Merci beaucoup pour la question. Canadian immigration officers are trained to consider applications on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, for crimes committed outside Canada, an immigration officer must determine whether the same act, if it occurred in Canada, would be considered a crime in Canada. And as part of this, we examine what the underlying action was. So, for example, a person who was arrested or charged for peacefully demonstrating or being at a protest would not be inadmissible, as those actions are not considered crimes in Canada. Similarly, being part of a mass arrest would not automatically lead an immigration officer to approve or refuse an application. We provide program guidance regularly to our officers all across the globe, including in Hong Kong, and that program guidance reflects changes in risk considerations and also provides information on local and regional contexts in certain circumstances. Our officers also receive regular and ongoing training on these and other matters.
Merci beaucoup. J'aimerais vous référer au cas du.
Thank you very much. And now in the case of the UK, they said in July 2020 that it would ease access for Hong Kong nationals. Have you contemplated something similar here in Canada?
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the answer. The new measures that we announced were complementary, so added to the other measures of our allies in other countries. So the Great Britain decided to do something because they've got a long history with Hong Kong. But in Canada, we created new pathways to help them immigrate to Canada. And it's to help mostly the youth to have a particular mechanism. In the programs that were announced, you're mainly focusing on students. So I have two questions. What do you intend to do for that population that could have been activists and they were arrested, but they're not really part of the student population? And within the student population, there are probably several who speak neither English or French, and then they're not eligible for work or study permits. So what do you intend to do with this population who are also youth and activists, but they don't meet the criteria? Madam Chair, I would like to say that these new measures are complementary in our immigration system. But for these measures are for those dealing with students or doing post-secondary studies. So there are a lot of youth who are there, and they would be eligible for the temporary measures. And after they come to Canada, perhaps they could, in order to get work experience, they they could also apply to other permanent pathways. Do we have the idea of how many people would qualify for these categories of work or study? What population, what percentage of the population would that be?
Maybe the opportunity can be sometime else. Now we will move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 5 minutes. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to Ms. Kim. My first question is, with respect to the special measures that the government brought in, was there any consideration with respect to the special measures that were utilized during the Tiananmen Square back in June of 1989?
Thank you for the question. These measures were designed and developed by the government to look at the situation in Hong Kong. So as we were looking at what was available from our allies and what was happening on the ground, certainly we were looking at the specific situation in Hong Kong as opposed to past initiatives.
Has the ministry issued any minister's permits to date for the people of Hong Kong?
Merci pour la question. We're not able to disclose specific case information in terms of permits that have been issued to individuals in Hong Kong for their safety and security.
Sorry, I'm not asking about names. I'm just wondering, has any, like 1, 2, 5, 10, has any been issued? If so, how many?
There have been a few permits that have been issued, but again, for the safety and security of the people of Hong Kong, we will not be issuing those specific numbers at this point.
Okay, so even numbers are not being disclosed. I just highlight this as an issue because minister permits were utilized during the Tiananmen Square situation. In fact, was used quite regularly by the ministry then. So I'm wondering whether or not this is being utilized at this time. And I do think that it is important to actually adopt some of those measures that were utilized during that time, because I think there are similarities in terms of the risks for the people of Hong Kong at this point. As well, related to the HNC stream, back in the Tiananmen Square situation, it was clearly indicated that for all persons who have been in some way individually embarrassed, in some way embarrassed their government, or in so doing have exposed themselves to severe sanctions should they return. Those were the instructions that were given to officials then to consider HNC applications. Has there been any special instructions given from IRCC for consideration of HNC applications for the people of Hong Kong?
Our highly trained officers continue to look at each application on a case-by-case basis and based on the totality of evidence before them. HNC is one of the considerations that they do look at. And to give you an example, in 2020, from January until November 30th, there were 21 agency or public policy permits issued to residents of Hong Kong.
No, I appreciate that, but I'm just wondering whether or not special instructions were given the situation that has occurred and is increasing in terms of the dire situation in Hong Kong. So if officials can check and see whether or not special instructions been given and advise committee, I would really appreciate that. I'd like to actually just turn a moment in case if I don't get a chance to come back to it. I was mentioning earlier about VFS Global and their contract. The ministry is, as I understand, reviewing this situation with respect to renewal of contracts. Is the ministry considering bringing those services back in-house in light of the situation that's happening for the people of Hong Kong?
Thank you for the question. So the current VAT contracts are valid until October 31st, 2023. The VACs provide administrative support services and biometric collection services. They play no role in the decision-making process, and they are expressly forbidden from providing any visa-related advice to applicants or from making any type of determination. By having the VACs abroad, we're able to provide a higher number of administrative services to a higher number of applicants and
Sorry,
for a higher
I'm just
number of
going to interrupt
collections.
because I have very little time. But in light of the situation in Hong Kong, is the ministry at all concerned that even if somehow Chinese officials find out that applications are being made, that they could be in jeopardy? Is that being considered?
We have very strong safeguards in place governing the protection of personal information. There's an extensive oversight program in place and technological safeguards, ensuring that client information is collected, stored, and transmitted securely.
Sorry for interrupting, Madam Gillis. Time is up.
Accepting that there was a breach.
Ms. Kwan, time is up. Ms. Kwan, time is up. With that, our first panel comes to an end. On behalf of all the committee members, I would like to thank Madam Kim and Madam Gillis for appearing before the committee today, and sorry for the delay. I will suspend the meeting for a few minutes so that we can allow and give some time for the witnesses for the second panel to log in and allow the IT team to do their sound check. So the meeting is suspended for a few minutes. Thank you. Order. I would welcome our witnesses for the second panel for today's study on the of immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong. For this panel, we have with us Madame Avi Go, Clinic Director representing Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic. Welcome, Ms. Go. We are also joined by Mr. Eric Lee, Vice President for Canada Hong Kong Link. Welcome, Mr. Lee. We will start with the opening remarks. We will start with Ms. Ewi Go. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please start.
Great. Thank you very much. As mentioned, I'm the clinic director of the Chinese and Southeast Asian Legal Clinic, but I'm also a board member of the Toronto Association for Democracy in China, TADC. I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to comment on the new immigration measures to support Hong Kong pro-democracy activists. And since the announcement by Minister Mendocino in November 2020, we've seen more arrests being made by the Hong Kong government. On January 5th, the Hong Kong police arrested 50 former lawmakers and activists for allegedly violating the national security law. Their only crime was to organize an unofficial election primaries for Hong Kong. And more than 600,000 Hong Kongers participated in this electoral exercise, despite warning from Beijing not to do so. The continuing arrests of pro-democracy activists confirm our fear that no one is safe in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong police could and would, without warning and without cause, arrest anyone on suspicion of violating the national security law. And activists have become sitting duck as their liberty can be taken away anytime. We have heard reports of activists being detained up to 36 hours in a frigid room as part of the intimidation tactic. Their arrest also allowed the police to access the activists' personal contact information and seize their travel documents. So the democracy movement in Hong Kong, we know, has been driven to a great extent by the youth. Some of the MPs have commented on that. And it's in this context we examine the special immigration measures that Canada has adopted today. While the new initiatives will broaden the immigration pathways for some select groups, these measures have fallen short of responding to the worsening climate of white terror and constant surveillance experienced by many activists. There's also a glaring absence of humanitarian measures to assist those who are most at risk and would not qualify under these measures. For instance, the new open work permit is only being offered to recent university graduates. The criteria would exclude high school students and those who are not university educated. So just to put things in perspective, neither Joshua Wong nor Agnes Chow, two of the most prominent activists, would qualify because they have not yet finished university, nor would a number of Hong Kong activists working in blue-collar jobs who have managed to come here to seek asylum. And by failing to recognize the protesters' diverse demographic and educational background, these measures send a wrong message that Canada's commitment to protect them is limited to only those who will bring immediate economic benefits to our country. There are some Hong Kong residents, including young students, who are already here, and they, along with the dozens of asylum seekers, should be granted permanent residence under a special program similar to the one in place for Chinese nationals after the Tiananmen Square massacre. And for protesters who are currently stranded in another country, Canada should allow them immediate entrance under private refugee sponsorship programs or temporary resident permits with an exemption from the travel ban. And TADC, along with a number of other groups in Canada, have offered their assistance to help bring these activists to resettle here. We need our government to put the appropriate programs in place so that we can transform the goodwill that many Canadians have shown towards Hong Kongers into concrete actions. The pandemic has not stopped the oppression of political dissent from happening in Hong Kong or anywhere else. Pro-democracy activists are racing against time and running out of options. So that's why we're urging this honorable committee to call on Canada to take immediate actions to bring in more Hong Kong residents and grant them permanent status, irrespective of their educational and occupational background. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Go. We will now move on to Mr. Eric Lee. Mr. Lee, floor is yours. You can please start. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You are on mute, Mr. Lee.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
distinguished member of the committee, I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Eric Lee. I'm the Vice President of Canada Hong Kong Link. Our group works to protect and promote the furtherance of human rights, rule of law, and democracy in Hong Kong. We commend the Canadian government in announcing the new LIBO program that will broaden the pathway for selected groups of Hong Kong residents to take refuge in Canada. This is encouraging news as political persecution is dramatically increasing under Hong Kong national security law. From our perspective, the LIBO program is to save Hong Kongers from the unjust and threatening environment that is plaguing Hong Kong, and it is not a new immigration policy for people based on their socio-economic status. However, we are concerned about how LIBOR will be applied and that it may not prioritize those who are truly at risk or that it may even be abused by harmful groups in Hong Kong. It's important to distinguish the member of the harmful group in Hong Kong from using the LIBOR to infiltrate into Canada. By harmful groups, I'm referring to groups and individuals that impose threats on Hong Kong democratic development. For example, the groups endorsing the Hong Kong National Security Law and the Hong Kong Police Force. Firstly, I'd like to show you the demographic of the ordinary citizen who fought for their freedom in Hong Kong. Since June 2019, more than 10,000 people aged ranging from 11 to 80 plus years old have been arrested. They came from all walks of life who sacrificed their livelihood to participate in the protest. Large number of youth and protesters suffer from PTSD as a result of the police brutality they endured during their arrest. Those are the people who need our help. They all suffer because they want to restore the freedom and political system that they were promised to have until 2047. We would like to make the following recommendation for your consideration. First, to consider lifting the current essential travel ban to pro-democracy activists who are at risk of persecution because of such activities. They will have to respect each province's COVID-19 guideline upon arrival. Second, the open work permit criteria should address the diversity of Hong Kong pro-democracy activists in terms of age, educational, and occupational background. Third, applicants for the open work permit or study permits should be offered a 5-year visa with an expedited pathway to permanent resident status, similar to what our Five allies have offered. Fourth, we urge the Canadian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the consular staff in Hong Kong and nearby country to help arrange emergency travel documents for high-risk activists whose passports have been confiscated, and also to help recognize asylum seekers abroad and allow our community to sponsor them through the existing refugee sponsorship program. Fifth, Hong Kong international student and temporary skilled worker in Canada, along with political asylum seekers from Hong Kong who are proven to be at risk of political persecution when returning to Hong Kong, should be granted permanent resident status under a fast-tracked special program. Six, Hong Kong family reunification could be broadened to include siblings and extended family, such as uncle and aunts can support nephews and nieces. Cost of family reunification could be waived for those fleeing persecution. Since LIBOR is decided for those fleeing persecutions in Hong Kong, applicants should sign a declaration on his or her, or he or his did not have gross misconduct on hindering the democracy movement in Hong Kong. The consequence of a false declaration should result in deportation from Canada. This recommendation will safeguard that the LIBOR will serve the intended group of Hong Kongers. 8. Hong Kong police and immigration officers should be excluded from the LIBOR unless they are subject to serious vetting by CSIS or RCMP and proven that they were not involved in anything against the democracy movement or against human rights. This step will help prevent infiltration that threaten our national security. I think I'm running out of time now. Please refer to my submitted recommendation that enhance this current immigration policy in the spirit of LIBOR to save Hong Kongers. I'm happy to answer questions related to my recommendations in the Q&A session. I urge you to give this recommendation your serious attention and lend your support toward opening our door to those facing political persecution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. We will now move on to Mr. Cliché Levad, President for Association Québécois des Avocats et Avocates en droit des immigrations. Sorry for the pronunciation. Mr. Cliché Levad, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please start. Floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. Acadia was founded, the Acadie was founded in 1991 to group Quebec lawyers actively working in the field of immigration and to give them better representation by the Quebec Board and also with court services, whether it be provincial or Canadian immigration. We work at the Federal Court, the Superior Court of Quebec, and the Supreme Court of Canada, and we also take part in several parliamentary commissions before the House of Commons, like today, and the National Assembly of Quebec. So the question is very worried. We know what the government's position is to ease and accelerate the processing for permanent residency. However, we believe that we could do a lot more, and we're going to talk about 2 points that could be instituted. Now, when it comes to refugee protection, we're asking for an acceleration of the files that are being processed by the Canadian consulate in Hong Kong. It's important to allow the quick reception of sponsored refugees recognized by Canada and some humanitarian refugees that are in Hong Kong, and to finalize those files as quickly as possible so they can find safety in Canada. Barring which, and there should be some EATs given quickly so that these refugees that are usually privately or a sponsorship agreement holder could quickly get to Canada and as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. Canada should also evaluate of granting direct asylum to people in need who are in Hong Kong and need protection, and so that they can come to Canada as soon as possible. Secondly, we wish that Canada could reactivate the Canadian citizenship of certain Hong Kongers who lost their citizenship because of the non-recognition of dual citizenship by China. And we submit that that's important, that some people be reactivate or revalidate their Canadian citizenship if they have lost their citizenship because they had to choose between one or the other, and they decided to keep their Hong Kong status. And so for former Canadians, maybe there could be some kind of safeguard so we could reactivate their citizenship so these people, as Canadian citizens, could come back and not have to begin the whole immigration process. So these are only 2 ideas amongst many others. But I think on these 2 pathways for refugees and reactivation of our citizenship, we could do a lot more. Thank you.
This, we will now move to our round of questioning. We will start with our first round of questioning of 6 minutes. We will start with Ms. Dencho. Ms. Dencho, you have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much to the witnesses. Your opening testimonies were excellent. Very nice to see Madam Go here again today, and just really happy to have your expertise on this panel. I took a number of notes of the things you've said, and I really appreciated how you really laid it out very clearly that there's a fear that no one is safe, and that really the activist liberty is just being ripped away. People are being put in jails for 36 hours under terrible conditions. It really is very alarming to hear what is happening. So I have a couple questions for you, Madam Go. Given there are 300,000, as you mentioned, Hong Kong Canadians in Hong Kong and thousands in Canada with close ties to more family in Hong Kong, you've outlined that you don't believe the government's response is adequate at all. Can you outline what some other countries are doing and just reiterate some of the recommendations you have of what measures we should be taking now from the government of Canada to support Hong Kong?
Sure. So maybe I'll give an example of the UK government. So they agreed to take in all the Hong Kong people with the BNO passport. But that doesn't apply to all the activists neither, right? So it's only people who were born before 1997 and that their parents are not from China. So, that excluded a number of people as well. But with those with a passport, they will have a pathway to citizenship 5 years. I believe it was 5 years later. So I think with respect to the 300,000 Canadians you're mentioning, and I want to echo the last speaker, some of them may have chosen to give up their citizenship when they ran for election in Hong Kong. we know at least a couple of those are in that situation. But more importantly, even for the Canadians who are there, their family members may not be may not be Canadian citizens or permanent residents. It might be easier if it's spouse or children, like they can apply to sponsor them, but it's more difficult for parents and grandparents and uncles and aunts. And that's why I think Mr. Lee's concept of expanding the family class ramification is very important. And I don't think that, relying on the super visa, which is what Minister Mendocino mentioned in his announcement, to give the parents super visa would not address this issue because super visa is a temporary status. Again, those people will have to return to Hong Kong while their children and grandchildren are living here. So I think certainly the making sure that they can come here anytime before China wholesale announce all of these people non-Canadians and also allow them to bring their family over will be important.
Thank you, Madam Go. And several of the committee members, including yourself, outlined that many of the activists are not recently educated, have not worked in Canada. And so, I think you outlined this really well. This impacts blue collar workers. Joshua Wong, very famous pro-democracy activist, I believe facing 5 years, perhaps in prison. So can you just outline again what the government of Canada should be considering? And I think what you've mentioned is really limits it to almost an elitist group of people that'll make Canada the most money if they come here, and yet ignoring all these blue collar workers. So if you can just expand on your thoughts on that.
Sure. So, for instance, they are saying that you can come here as students, and that's true. But then, if you come here as students, they expect you to pay the international student tuition fee, which I'm sure a lot of these individuals, including some who are the 12-year-old, the 13-year-old, who have been arrested during last year, may not have money to do so. So that option is actually just not open to them. And if somehow they can find and make their way here, they have to still finish high school and then finish university before they will qualify for that, open work permit program for post university students. So I think it's important that we recognize that if these are activists, the reason why they leave Hong Kong is because of their political belief, then I think we should just treat them as people who are almost like asylum seekers. But then, rather than going through the asylum, the refugee determination process, that we have another way, and which is, I think, what the two panelists have mentioned. And I think Ms. Kwan has also mentioned in the last panel, having some kind of a program similar to the one that was in place after the Tiananmen Square massacre would be good as well. So you basically allow the Hong Kong nationals to apply for a permanent resident status in Canada. I'm not so sure. I'm sorry, Mr. Lee. I'm not so sure about the requirement for them to sign the declaration. Certainly, you can do security check of these individuals, right? And just because they may not have because you are in a situation where speaking out might put you at risk. So I think it's important that we think carefully before we impose that kind of a requirement on the applicants.
Thank you, Madam Go. We have just a few seconds left. I wanted you to comment, if you could, on the Hong Kong government saying they have to renounce their either Canadian citizenship or Chinese citizenship. What impact is that going to have on folks there?
So we know that some of the the Canadian citizens who have moved back to Hong Kong have given up their citizenship in the past, especially those who wanted to seek electoral, office in Hong Kong. What I think we're worried about, however, is that the Chinese government.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Go.
Okay,
Your time
sorry.
is up. Maybe you will find another opportunity.
Thank you, Madam Go.
Thank you, Ms. Dencho. We will now move on to Ms. Tillon. Ms. Tillon, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please start.
Thank you to the witnesses for coming in and waiting as long as you did as well to testify and speak with us to this very important question. So my first question for all three of you is of the measures that are presented by our government, do you believe that there are areas for improvement with regard to what has been proposed. I think it would be very helpful to us if you can maybe give us some best practices or any ideas of things we can improve. Thank you so much.
Maybe I'll go first then. Then I think that I would suggest that that open work permit that is currently now only reserved for people with post-secondary degree, just make that open to anyone from Hong Kong. Of course, like, we may not want a 12-year-old working in Canada, but there may be other people who want to come here to work and to, seek refuge. And that they don't have a university degree. So I think just with that alone, I think it will open the door to many more people.
As we said, perhaps extending the category for family reunification, so to allow people who are not eligible at the beginning to be included. We could also do better in terms of refugee protection. Many people are waiting for resettlement in Canada, so this could be done quite quickly with a temporary permit. With a TRP, the law allows for it. That's quite important. So we should reduce as much as possible the waiting times and give temporary permits as soon as possible so that people can come as visitors, but also that they be able to work and integrate and find security once again here in Canada. Thank you. And according to you, Mr. Rivard, just a follow-up question, I wanted to ask this question. Do you believe that the measures put forward by our government will be efficient for people who want to come here on a temporary or permanent basis? Well, it depends on the circumstances of each person, but to come here on a temporary basis and to wait for permanent residency, that's quite difficult. Everyone needs to find a job, to integrate the society, to have insurance. They need to be sure they'll be able to find safety here. So I believe we should finalize those files as soon as possible. And the sooner permanent residency is given, the better for the person. We want to ensure that there are not several applications at the same time for the same person. So if we can give them permanent residency and allow these people to participate in society, the better for our country. Thank you.
Can you give us an understanding of the current situation for residents of Hong Kong and the reaction they're having to the Canadian measures that were taken on the ground? Maybe with people who you are connected with, if you can give us some feedback to the committee regarding that. Thank you so much.
Can I go?
Yes. The question was for
Okay.
you. I addressed it to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I go back to the first question. I think right now we have a good refugee sponsorship program, but like chicken and egg, we will never get the refugees because there's nobody to certify the refugees in Hong Kong or nearby country. There's no UNHCR there, and there's no like the Canadian Council staff are not doing that. So that's why one of our suggestion is if we can identify our the refugees from Hong Kong from abroad, then we can use the existing refugee sponsorship program to sponsor Hong Kongers to come, right? And I echo all the comments from my fellow witnesses. I think those are great concerns, especially when the elected officials from Hong Kong, they all give up their Canadian citizenship. I think we should have some way that let them reinstate their citizenship and then let them come back here, because the situation in Hong Kong is really hostile, and they usually try to arrest you with harassment. right? They will come to your house at 6 a.m. in the morning, right? And then put you, actually, they've been detained for more than 36 hours. I think a couple of them, like even a 71 years old barrister from Hong Kong, he was detained for 44 hours in a cold cell, like, and like he's really old already, but like they still try to harass him, and like when they cannot find a right law to prosecute somebody, they will just use the national security law because
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Lee. Your time is up.
Okay.
We will now move on to Madame Normandian. Madame Normandian, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you very much. And thank you to our three witnesses for their speeches. So thank you for your recommendations as well. I have one question for Mr. Krishriva. You said it, everyone said it, the programs put in place by the government are currently quite restrictive and will not help a large population. So we're talking about study permits leading to permanent residency, for example. But for those people who would manage to not get arrested by the Chinese authority and to come here to Canada, and for those who would like to table a refugee claim, what are the main problems they are facing? Well, right now we are having big difficulties because those who are seeking asylum within Canada are facing issues of eligibility. There are a lot of delays before they get the right forms and documents, and it is difficult to get a work permit. Especially for the requests made in Canada, the delays are quite long, and people are waiting for a long time and remain vulnerable. So to tell people you can come and claim asylum here, this is quite problematic at this time, and we have to really speed up admissibility interviews because we are still dealing with files from March 2020. So it's almost a year time. And this allows you to get a work permit. So this is an issue. And then once the asylum claim is heard, if a person is accepted, they still have to wait for 2 years for a permanent residency, and that's on top of their refugee claim that normally takes about 2 or 3 years. So that's a long time before being able to bring family members and before they are finally sure that they can stay here and be safe. So these people cannot go back to their country, so we have to put in place other measures quite quickly. I wonder if our two other witnesses would like to add something, Ms. Go or Mr. Lee.
I think one of the biggest challenges is that whether or not they can actually enter Canada because of the travel ban. So we know, for instance, we are working with a number of activists who are stranded in UK. So they managed to leave Hong Kong, and that's the first country that they were able to get to. And they can't even come to Canada right now. So those who actually managed to come here are the lucky ones. And in fact, the process has been relatively quickly compared to the normal refugee determination process for the Hong Kong asylum seekers. But the fact that they can't come in is one big problem, and that's why we have been pushing for having some kind of temporary resident permits for these individuals, for them to come here. At least they'll be safe. And then hopefully that we will have some kind of pathway for them to get a permanent resident status.
Actually, I just want to add on that like a number of study visa have been rejected by Hong Kong consulate office because they thinking that if the person after their study will stay in Canada, then they will not qualify, right? But actually, that defeats the purpose of our current lifeboat right now. We want people to come to study and then get a job and then stay here. So I hope that those consulate staff will be more accommodating to all these study applications. Like even like especially the age limit, like because some of the people they may go back to their MBA program or something after they are 40 or 50 years old, right? So I don't think we should set any age to those study programs or those special measures that we are having right now.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. And my next question is with regard to confirmation of permanent residency. There are many people in Hong Kong who have received this confirmation of permanent residency, but after March 18th, so there are travel restrictions that apply to them. Should we lift those restrictions for people of Hong Kong who have received their letter confirming their permanent residency? Well, I believe we should lift it for people from Hong Kong, and I believe that people who have received confirmation are not people who are going to travel and be a safety issue. If these people receive the letter, they should be allowed to come to Canada. It doesn't make sense that they not be allowed to come here while other visitors are able to come here and visit their family members. So if they do have the confirmation of permanent residency, they should be allowed to come to Canada immediately, and there should be an exemption in the government and council order. These people should be allowed to fly and make an asylum claim on their way here. Canada must honor its commitments with regard to international law.
Time is up. We will now move on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. Floor is yours. You can please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for their very thoughtful presentations. I'd like to actually first go to Ms. Go on this question. With respect to measures, back in 1989, the government then brought in a variety of measures to deal with the Tiananmen Square situation. We just heard from officials to say that they actually did not consider those measures. I take a different view. I think that government should be looking into that situation, learn from that history, and to apply it to current day today. One of the measures that was brought in was to ensure that all removals of Chinese nationals in Canada were suspended for an indefinite period. That's something that we have not done. Do you think the Canadian government should do that?
Yes, for sure. And I think that it's in keeping with that spirit that, we recognize that there's a crisis, a political crisis in Hong Kong, just as there was a crisis in China at that time. We allow Chinese nationals at that time to apply for permanent residence just like that. And in fact, I remember through my work with the Chinese Canadian National Council at the time, we were helping people apply for permanent residence. And the moratorium on deportation lasted beyond the period of that program until I think early 1990s. So I think that for sure is something that we should consider right now.
Thank you. Just related to that, the official also said that the government did not consider and will not consider refugee status because of the UNHCR designation and so on. In the 2019 mandate letter to the Minister of Immigration, the Prime Minister actually instructed him to, quote, introduce a dedicated refugee stream to provide safe haven for human rights advocates, journalists, and humanitarian workers at risk. Do you think that we should be adopting those measures? Because if we do not, those folks who do not qualify under these various streams will never be able to get to Canada, even on the privately sponsored refugee stream. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. And over the history of Canada, we know that over time we have created different programs, refugee programs, in recognition of a political situation happening in another country, former Yugoslavia, just off the top of my head, that's the first one that I can think of. So I certainly think we can create a program for this particular situation, knowing that there is no UNHCR in Hong Kong and then and they have nowhere to go, like, sort of like, and they can, like, some of them have gone to Taiwan. Taiwan is not a country that has signed on to, well, it's not even recognized as a country, and they have not signed on to the UN Convention on Refugees. So, so a lot of these people are stranded in some other countries as well, and not being able to access any of the UNHCR offices. So I think we definitely should create one for them.
Thank you. I see, Mr. Lee, you nodding on that issue. Can I just get you to quickly comment on that as well?
I totally agree. Like, because like as I said, like chicken and egg, we never get the refugees status for those people, so we cannot use any of our existing program to support them. I totally agree with your suggestion that we should like have even a blanket like policy like we have in 1989.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. I just want to actually jump into another area because, again, learning from history is really important. One of the directives that actually came forward back in Tiananmen Square was, in fact, to say that to the officials at that time that we should always keep in mind that if an individual has somehow embarrassed their government, in this instance, the Chinese government, and in so doing have exposed themselves to severe sanctions should they return. And yet that directive has not been given. Here to the people who are processing HNC applications. Do you think that the government should, in fact, say that outright and clearly as a directive?
Is that a question for me or?
Yes, Ms. Go, please.
Okay. I actually don't think the HNC process is the way to go because HNC is a very discretionary process. It's up to the individual officers. And who knows if these officers support or not support the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. So we have, if anyone needs to sign a declaration, maybe immigration officers should sign declarations about their commitment to human rights. But putting that aside, I think the best way is to create a special program so that we are not relying on individual officers' discretion, similar to the Tiananmen Square program. And it's simple, it's efficient, and also it will be much more inclusive than what we have right now.
Fair enough. I absolutely agree. But in the absence of that, I certainly hope that there's a clear directive on HNC claims because I'm quite worried about that process. Now, I'm noting my time. You've all mentioned about the limitations of the existing programs because there's only a very small group of people who would be able to access entry into Canada. If the government, in fact, extended the family class reunification and even allow for those who are students that are here to make application to sponsor extended families to come to Canada, that would expand it a lot. So I think I heard agreement from everyone that the government should indeed expand the family reunification measure to extended family and to lift the travel restrictions, because without which nobody can get here. Can I just get a quick answer from everybody on that?
Just 5 seconds left.
I agree, but you have to relax the income requirement.
Time is up. Thank you, Ms. Go. Sorry. We will now move to our second round of questioning. Based on the time, we will have 4 minutes each for the Conservative and the Liberal, and then 2 minutes each for Bloc and NDP. So we will start with Mr. Janice. You will have 4 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please start. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you so much to the witnesses and for your testimony, but especially for the important work that you're doing. It really seems to me that the government's program in this area is odd because it's all about sort of economic categories and criteria for the most part, instead of really trying to identify human rights defenders, people that are most vulnerable to political persecution. It's great to have economic migrants coming from Hong Kong, but there are so many people who would face charges under laws unrelated to the Security Act. There are people who are not eligible, but who are really most at the epicenter of these human rights issues, and it really, I think, shows the problem with the government's thinking and approach to this. You can realize both benefits. Of course, people who come here who face persecution can still bring a great deal of benefit economically, and that includes people who may not have that much money in their pocket when they come. But the reason people are calling for immigration measures around Hong Kong is not because someone saw an economic opportunity here. It's because of the human rights and political situation. I want to hear your thoughts specifically on how and what kind of measures we could have around immigration to target the most vulnerable human rights defenders. Using Hong Kong as an example, but perhaps it's applicable to other contexts around the world as well, that when we have people that are really kind of at the center of advocating for human rights and become politically exposed as a result, those people would make, in virtually every case, great Canadians. And we do this, but it seems we do this on more of an ad hoc basis. So the minister uses their discretion to say, we're going to have this person from Saudi Arabia or whatever. But to think in a more sort of systematic policy way, how do we identify those important human rights defenders and give them a path to Canada? So maybe Ms. Go first, and I'd love to hear the thoughts of others.
I think it's hard to think of it as a broad policy mechanism because every country's situation is different, right? But I think maybe, and just use Hong Kong as an example, right now you can say that a lot of people are at risk, but we don't know exactly at what point they will become at risk. We know that, the police can call it on, arrest them anytime, but we don't know what that day is. So technically, let's say you are a democracy activist now in Hong Kong, you have not been arrested. Are you considered at risk under, sort of our definition of convention refugee? Maybe not, right? So I think that, so in the case of Hong Kong, I think what our government can do is to work with community groups like ours who have connection with Hong Kong, and to identify people who we think potentially are at risk because of their involvement, and try to find a way to bring them here through the temporary resident permit or through some other ways. And even if the Canadian government doesn't want to advertise it because of, they don't want to, make the relationship with China any worse, there are ways that we can work together and to create
Let me just, if I could just drill down for a quick follow-up while my time lasts here, Ms. Go. So do you think some process where we asked Canadian Hong Kong organizations to help us identify a certain number of individuals who were maybe not yet arrested or charged, but particularly exposed or vulnerable, and we said, we want to identify a certain number of people. We want to work with you as civil society groups to identify those individuals and create a special path for them?
Yes, yep. I think that's doable.
Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. We will now move to Madame Martinez Farada. Madame Martinez Farada, you have 4 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please start.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll share this time with my colleagues. So thank you, witnesses, for your presence and comments. We see that there's a problem with Hong Kongers that if they're accused of a crime, they fear that they might not get into Canada for criminal reasons. But the representatives of the department earlier today said that it was established that no similar offence exists in Canada. There would be no impact on the individual. In other words, a quiet demonstration is not a crime here. So that would not prevent entry into Canada. Now, do you think this is well understood by Hong Kong residents who could be arrested under their national law?
Can I just respond? First of all, the way that the arrest is being done right now, they are not going to say that you're arrested because you peacefully participated in a protest. They are going to say that you have breached the national security law based on treason, sedition, and and so on and so forth. So the charge itself is not peaceful protest. The charge is treason or sedition. So of course, I think that we can go beneath that to understand the conduct leading up to the charge. But I think rather than doing that, and again relying on the individual officers' interpretation of the facts and the law, I think we should look to to the south of the border as an example, where I believe whether it's the U.S. Congress or Senate, I can't remember now, they have made sort of basically stated that that anyone charged with criminal offense because of their peaceful participation in the protest in Hong Kong would not be barred from entering the U.S. So I think we can work something out similar to those kind of that requirements, so that we don't have to rely on individual CBSA officers, particularly in light of the fact that CBSA has recently tried to make a case to give themselves more power, as opposed to the Immigration Division more power to decide who is criminally admissible or not.
Madam Martinez Parada, you are on mute.
I think Mr. Lee is next. I think
Yeah.
she asked both people. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Lee,
Yeah.
would you like to add to it?
Yeah, actually, I tried to answer to Mr. Garner's question. I think the first thing first is we have to educate or maybe instruct our staff in the Canadian consulate in Hong Kong, because right now I know cases that somebody he is a Canadian and he's been vocal in Hong Kong, and like he almost he ride motorbike in Hong Kong, but he almost run down by somebody and almost deliberately run him down. So he asked for help in the consulate, and the help was refused. So I think our staff should be more helpful in in helping our activists in Hong Kong to to. I'm not sure he need the special passport right now, but I think something that our staff should be more helpful.
Madam Martinez Parada, you have 15 seconds. Okay.
Madam Chair, I think she was sharing with me, but 15 seconds isn't enough to ask my question. Thank you.
We will now move on to Madame Normandin. Madame Normandin, you have 2 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much. Earlier, I asked the questions to the officers. I said that the UK set up programs to ease access to citizenship, and I asked why weren't we doing it here? Well, because the UK has a particular relationship with Hong Kong, we want to have complementary measures. But without going to actual citizenship, is there any kind of program? Wouldn't permanent residency be an ideal? I think so, definitely. There is a special program because of the pandemic. When there are exceptional issues, there can be special programs. There could be one to have access to residency either from Hong Kong or in Canada, an accelerated program for residency. There was one for construction workers in Ontario who didn't have any papers. So there is ministerial powers at immigration to set up public policies, and there could be a ministerial policy for a program to permanent residency for Hong Kongers to get people into with that kind of status as quickly as possible. Mr. Lee, Mrs. Go, I see you nodding if you want to say something.
The most critical thing right now is for them to come into Canada. I think it would be good to have a special program or fast track for them to become a permanent resident or citizen. But I think the critical thing right now is let them leave Hong Kong and come to Canada and to settle, because of the hostile situation there, and they can be arrested anytime. I'm not sure how many can survive this from now on. So I think we need to have some kind of mechanism to let them come in.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Lee. Time is up. We will now go to our last round of questioning, and that will be by Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 2 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Yes, just going to the point about bringing a special program. a refugee program. In fact, working with NGOs, Rainbow Railway was a pilot program that the Canadian government did to support people from the LGBTQ2 community. I think we can duplicate that. Is that something that Ms. Go, you were referring to earlier?
Yes, yeah, that will be another example, right? So, and working with NGOs, identifying the activists, and not just in Hong Kong, I would add, but also activists who are now stranded in Taiwan, UK, because that's the country that they could exit to within that short period of time to make sure they will also have a pathway to Canada as well.
Just very quickly, we were talking about the 300,000 Canadian that are abroad, and some of them may have given up their Canadian citizenship. Some of them were lawmakers actually in Hong Kong. They had to give up in order to run. So should the Canadian government bring a initiative forward to say that those who's given up their Canadian citizenship can now ask for it to be reinstated in light of the situation if they're at risk?
Yes, I agree with that.
Thank you. Quick question. We learned about the VFS Global, which is a company that is now apparently doing contract work for the Canadian government in processing various visa application information. Should we bring that back to in-house? I'm very worried about the people of Hong Kong. Quickly, a quick round from everybody. Yes, Mr. Lee?
Yes, definitely, because I heard that some information was leaked already. So, but I cannot verify that. Like, I cannot fact check that. But I was told that some information was leaked because of somebody go through that process. So I'm really afraid that like this is not a single instance. They probably quite common there.
The Globe and Mail actually reported that there was a breach of security, and IRCC wasn't even notified of that breach. That to me is very concerning.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan. Time is up. With this, our second panel comes to an end. I want to thank all our three witnesses for appearing before the committee and providing important information as we started this study today. Before we adjourn, I just want to let everyone know that I will, in regards to the adoption of the subcommittee report, I will review the blues. And on Monday, we will start the meeting before we hear from the witnesses. We will start with the amendment which was and debate on the agenda, the amendment which was proposed by Ms. Dencho, so that we can adopt the subcommittee report. So we will start our Monday's meeting with that. And I will also review the blue if there is any confusion on that. So with that, I would thank everyone, thank all the witnesses once again, and thank all the members for today's meeting. And the meeting is now adjourned, and I will see you all on Monday.
Madam Chair, can you work with Madam Dancho before?
Meeting is adjourned. So.